Haywire Mite seems inconspicuous, but it is a very special card. Why? Because this is an uncommon that costs more than $3 at this moment. So at this moment it is very popular, and I thought, why wouldn't we give a little bit more spotlight even to this small uncommon from a rather recent set, Brothers War. Haywire Mite, very interesting, and you might not think so, because at first you see a 1 mana 1/1 that gives you 2 life when it dies. But this is actually a very low-costed creature, and that is very important here. 1 mana creatures are very rare already, and the fact that this is an artifact creature as well gives it a lot of power in many formats. His second ability is even more special, where it gives you the ability for agreeing to sacrifice it and to exile target non-creature, artifact or enchantment that also has to be non-creature. We see in the art what happens. It goes into the machine and then it sort of is meant to explode it. But we'll get into the art later. Let's first look at the decks that it's in. So it is in, and this is giving it its high pricing. It is in Pioneer, it is in Modern, it is in Legacy, even in Vintage, and you wouldn't expect that from this little guy, but it is. In Pioneer and Modern, it works great with Karn the Great Creator, because Karn gets the ability to fetch a card that can destroy an artifact or an enchantment, and this is only 2 mana, so that is on par with many of the artifact enchantment destroyers as well. So it is a very efficient removal piece actually, even if you wouldn't use it as a creature, because well, it doesn't give you anything for that green devotion that it is in for Pioneer, for example. Secondly, it is in the thought cost decks of Legacy and Vintage, where of course this creature is just 1 mana, so it works perfectly for affinity, not even losing you a mana if you were planning to play Thoughtcast this turn. So yeah, 1 mana artifacts are already good in this, but in all of those decks, Haywire Mite is usually only used as a one-off in the sideboard. So how come this card is so expensive then? Well, that is because it is in all of these formats, and it is driving the price up because of it. It even is more costly than many of the other rares that are in these decks, which is a bit strange. The lore behind Haywire Mite, as I have promised I would get into, is spotted actually through reading who is writing these flavor texts. So we see that Turgle Goblin Explosioneer says that they are easy enough to squish, but they are a pain to wash out of a workbench in the flavor of Haywire Mite. And Turgle returns in Goblin Firebomb, where he says, and if this works, Thanos is going to let us build the full-sized version. And Thanos is a very important character, because Thanos is employed by Urza. So we know that the Haywire Mites aren't from Urza. Instead, they are probably siding with Mishra. And there is more evidence to this, because we see, for example, the green light on the Haywire Mite. That is also returned in the weak stone that Mishra uses a lot. It also is more logical now how the Haywire Mite is destroying these artifacts, because perhaps it just bites into a creature and sort of infuses a form of weakness into it that might, or another creature, an artifact or enchantment, and infuses sort of weakness into it that might make the go haywire. We see this green in a lot of art from Mishra's, we see it returning there, for example in Weakstone's Subjugation, but also in all of these other ones. Mishra's Command, we see Mishra's Onslaught, where the green is returned here, Mishra's Domination, where we see the green here, and even in the Sibling Rivalry, where we see Mishra on the right side fighting against Urza, who's using actual red, which you can also sort of see in the art of Haywire Mite in the holes that he is probably coming out from, but we'll talk more about that later. You might think, well, is that on purpose really, the green light? And well, yes, probably, because in other art from Izzy, the light is used very much on purpose. For example, with Filigree Familiar on the right here, you see these lights that are later turned red for the fraction version of Filigree Familiar. And on the left we see Sensor Splicer, where the light is used to focus our eyes. So Izzy really thinks about light when making art. Focusing more on that art though, I have one problem with this art piece, because I am wondering whether these mites are coming out of this machine or whether they are going into these perfect holes or something, because they don't fit. These are like maybe octagonals. They have like these little, they are not round at least, and they are coming out of something round, if they are coming out of it. And if they are going into it, I don't know what kind of artifact or enchantment this is, because the only artifact that I could find, which is not even a non-creature artifact, is Rust Goliath with these holes. So that might be the case that they are going into there, but it would be a little bit flavorful if they would be going into something specific that they perfectly fit into, because the two brothers have been sort of countering each other with very specific weapons that are meant to counter each other. So if, for example, Ursa would make a Rust Goliath, then it would be almost logical for Mishra to make a Haywire Mite that would perfectly shut that Rust Goliath down. But Haywire Mite doesn't work on artifact creatures, it only works on non-creature artifacts. So this doesn't work. The most fitting thing I could find is Tran Power Suit, but it doesn't have the holes. But is this sort of that rounded feeling? So maybe they are coming out of it and the holes are just a little bit weird. Maybe they don't perfectly fit into there. I am not sure. This is really hurting me a little bit. But I did find the green stuff to be very interesting in linking it to Mishra. And I hadn't noticed that green motif in the set before. So there you have it. And of course, lastly, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.